Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The cultivators standing close to the edge were eager to try. Madame Huang pushed away lightly from the umbrellas before she descended. The disciples who wielded the umbrellas followed closely behind her. The crowd made way for Madame Huang. Madame Huang walked up to the edge of the island and looked at Luoyu in the sea. The area where Luoyu was swimming around was precisely the area under the formation. At this moment, many cultivators began urging Madame Huang. The formation must have been damaged by this Luoyu. The floating island is kept in place by the formation. The other 4 islands rely on the floating island as the core. If the floating island is gone, Pinglai is as good as gone as well. Madame Huang, please give the order. Madame Huang knew these people had ulterior motives hidden behind their seemingly helpful actions. However, she could not afford to lose her cool now, nor could she agree to their request immediately. However, if Pinglai Island was not saved and the formation was destroyed, Pinglai would truly be in danger. At this moment, Ma Qing said in a loud voice, "The way I see it, we should ask old Senior Ji for his opinion." Upon hearing Ma Qing's words, the others regained their senses. They recalled the Taoist 9 cuts hand seals they had just witnessed, and fear rose in their hearts again. With this reminder, they shut their mouths and looked at Lu Zhou. Was he truly the great individual from the evil sky pavilion? Regardless of what the others thought or what the results of the Golden Taishu Mirror's examination were, Ma Qing was convinced the old man before him was the evil sky pavilion's patriarch. Those who believed that the old man was only a 2-leaf cultivator either had their heads caught in a door or were out of their minds. Could a 2-leaf cultivator take down the Taishu Academy's Grand Elder in just a blink of an eye? Was that even possible? Ma Qing was an elder of the Qingyun sword sect. His words weighed more than the others. Lu Zhou extended a hand and said, "Yuan." Little Yuan understood her master's meaning. She placed the golden Taishu mirror in her master's hand. The glow faded. Lu Zhou gleamed at the Taishu Academy disciples, causing them to stumble back in fear. Even their grand elder, Jiang Lizzie, was incapable of withstanding a single hit from this old man. One could only imagine how powerful he was. However, they were perplexed. Why did the golden Taishu mirror show him as a 2-leaf cultivator? It was not just them, everyone present was confused as well. The golden Taishu mirror could not lie. Lu Zhou said in a deep voice, "From this moment on, the golden Taishu mirror belongs to the evil sky pavilion." His words were powerful and resounded through the area. Ding! Obtained the golden Taishu mirror. Owner, Lin Xian. Recultivation needed before use. Although this item would not help much in improving Lu Zhou's cultivation base, he found it interesting. Lin Xian was the Taishu Academy's patriarch. Rumor had it that his great limit was close at hand. Yet, no news of his death had spread as of yet. It made one wonder what he used to maintain his life / the effects of the golden Taishu mirror were unique. Where did he get it from? Thud. The Taishu Academy disciples fell to their knees immediately. Their faces were glistening with sweat. Just when they were about to beg for mercy. Rumble. The floating island sunk again. Old Senior, now's not the time to be quarreling with the Taishu Academy. Please help Pinglai. If the floating island is saved, I'll give you the Pinglai Heavenly Scroll. Pinglai Heavenly Scroll? A commotion broke out as everyone began to discuss among themselves again. It was said that the Pinglai Sect Patriarch's cultivation base had improved greatly, all thanks to the Pinglai Heavenly Scroll. In a way, it helped lift Pinglai Island's status to the height it was now. However, due to the cryptic nature of its contents, nobody understood it. After the passing of the Patriarch, the Pinglai Heavenly Scroll was passed down from generation to this day. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the Pinglai Heavenly Scroll was the foundation of Pinglai Island. It was unexpected for Madame Huang to offer it up. The floating island is sinking. Madame Huang has no choice. However, there's only one scroll. How will it be divided amongst us? The ambition of the wolves was becoming clearer. Madame Huang's asking old Senior Ji for help, not you. Don't get ahead of yourselves. It's true that the old senior is an elite, but whether he's old Senior Ji or not still remains to be seen. You know too little about the golden Taishu mirror. That's no ordinary mirror. It sees through all lies in this world. It can't possibly make a mistake. How are you going to explain the 9 cuts hand seals then? An 8-leaf Taoist expert could have done that. Whether it was the Buddhist Great Seal of Fearlessness, the Taoist 9 cuts hand seals, or Huawudo's 9 scripts 6 compatible seal, they were all 8-leaf grand techniques. However, it was difficult to unleash these massively powerful energy seals. Hence, the cultivators rarely used them. In most cases, the results were not worth the trouble. Shh! Don't say that. I think he's the real deal. Keep your mouth shut if you want to stay alive. For you lot, there's no difference between an 8-leaf and a 9-leaf cultivator. They could be killed with a single palm seal. It made no difference. Who gave them the courage to belittle an 8-leaf expert? Some believed while others remained doubtful. Madame Huang did not concern herself with this. All she wanted was for someone to help her get out of this predicament. She said again, "Please take charge, old senior." Zhou looked at the graceful and composed Madame Huang and said, "Wang Shiji has an 8-leaf cultivation base. If he can't do it, why do you think I can?" The others looked at Madame Huang. Madame Huang bowed and said, "I have no other choice." Zhou raised the golden Taishu mirror in his hands and channeled some primal qi into it. A beam of light shot out of the golden Taishu mirror and shone on the crowd. Avatars appeared around those who were shone on by the light. Most of them were 10 worlds avatars. Only a handful of them was at the 1-leaf and 2-leaf stage. Some cultivators deliberately avoided the light to hide their cultivation bases. It was possible for there to be grand cultivators among the people here. There might be any number of cultivators below the 9-leaf stage. The allure of the Penglai heavenly scroll was great. Zhou flipped his wrist. The light shone on the sea. Luo Yu swam faster. Clang. A sound similar to chains being shattered rang from the southeastern corner of one of the huge islands. Penglai Island shook with the sound. Everyone present staggered and nearly lost their footing. Madame Huang frowned slightly and said, "Bring the heavenly scroll here." Understood. The cultivators on the island registered war-expectant expressions on their faces. They were curious about what the Penglai heavenly scroll looked like. Shortly after, a Penglai disciple carried the heavenly scroll in his arms as he flew toward them from the central region of the island. He landed before the crowd of Penglai cultivators on one knee and presented it to Madame Huang. "Madam." Madame Huang said, "If Penglai is destroyed, the heavenly scroll will be destroyed as well." She took it with one hand. There were clear ornamental patterns on the outer surface of the scroll, which was made from some unique material. She channeled some primal qi into the scroll, and the ornamental patterns shone. Now. Whistling sounds rang from the 4 islands, and 3 figures flew toward Madame Huang immediately. Who cared about the Penglai sect? Who truly wanted to save Penglai? Madame Huang was not surprised. She exerted some pressure with her hand. The heavenly scroll returned to the box. With a click, it was locked. She pushed away from the ground and rose into the air. The umbrella-holding cultivators behind Madame Huang flew up into the sky as well. Bam! 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 The 3 figures reeled and spat out mouthfuls of blood. The remaining umbrella-holding cultivators escorted Madame Huang as they hovered in midair. She said decisively, "Activate the formation." 4 rings of light shone on the 4 islands. With the floating island in the center, the rings of light merged to form a special formation. A screen covered the skies. The huge barrier covered everyone on the island like a massive cage. For an instant, the cultivators who were making their moves looked up at the barrier with stunned expressions. Someone laughed maniacally. What's the use of this? Once the floating island falls, these formations will be useless. Someone even bowed at Zhou and said, Old Senior, we'll leave Madame Wang to you. You can leave the rest to us. You can have the heavenly scroll. What do you say? Madame Huang looked at them from the skies. The battles on the 4 islands had already started. She had great hopes for the island before herself. Ma Qing. My husband has invited you here. Are you trying to strike us when we're down as well? Madame Huang looked at Ma Qing. Ma Qing said in a deep voice, Everyone, stop. Qingyun Sword Sect disciples, hear my order. Yes, elder. Defend Penglai. The 100 sword cultivators from the Qingyun Sword Sect rose into the air at the same time. Zing. 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 They unsheathed their swords. As they hovered in midair, they pointed their swords at the cultivators who were trying to take advantage of this situation. When Madame Huang saw this, she bowed and said, Penglai will remember the Qingyun Sword Sect's help. Madame Huang, now's not the time for this. Penglai Island's crisis was much more difficult than they had anticipated. The sinking floating island was not the only problem. There was a pack of hungry wolves waiting for the right moment to attack. Ma Qing rose into the air and said, Anyone who dares lift a finger against Penglai will be the sworn enemy of the Qingyun Sword Sect. His soundwave spread to the 4 islands and the floating island. The Penglai disciples on the 4 islands swarmed out and hovered above the islands. The remaining disciples who could not fly remained on the ground with frightened expressions on their faces. If the island sank, they would die. Ma Qing, you can quit your hypocritic act. You're just trying to take all the spoils for yourself, aren't you? Fat chance of that happening. I'd like to see how long you can hold out against us. The other cultivators drew their swords and sabers as they pointed at the umbrella-holding cultivators and members of the Qingyun Sword Sect in the air. Old Senior. Just give the word, and the treasures of Penglai Island will be ours. 2 cultivators walked up to Zhou. Ma Qing looked at Zhou with a worried expression. He was not worried about the others, he was worried about this old man who had been keeping a low profile all this while. The old man's stance would determine the survival of Penglai. Zhou furrowed his brows slightly as he turned to look at the crowd. He stroked his beard and said, Did I say I'll wallow in the mire with you lot? The others were stunned. Old Senior. Don't you want the Penglai Heavenly Scroll? Rumble. The floating island sank another 10 meters again. The barrier above it contorted. Eventually, it could no longer withstand the pressure, and it shattered. Its power dissolved into spots of starlight and scattered in the skies. Madame Huang's face fell as she said, This is bad. Zhou looked back at little Yuan and ordered, Yuan, protect Conk. Don't worry, master. Conk was wearing the cloud feather raiment, coupled with her protection, unless a grand cultivator attacked them, they were in no danger at all. The instant the formation shattered, many cultivators from the seas far away above Penglai Island charged toward the island. Looking down from the skies, they seemed like ants. Madame Huang extended her palm and shot toward the skies. She looked down from above the floating island. At this moment, she noticed the island on which Zhou was at merely contained a small number of cultivators. With the barrier shattered, the cultivators lying in wait outside the 4 islands had come out of hiding to make their moves. There were hundreds of cultivators emerging from each island. Penglai disciples, hear me. Fend off the enemies. Understood. The umbrella-wielding cultivators took flight. Umbrellas shot toward the 4 directions. The battle started abruptly. Madame Huang looked at the floating island and sighed softly. Dear husband. This is all I can do. The floating island was originally 100 meters above the 4 islands. Currently, it was only 20 meters from the sea's surface. Maniacal laughter rang from the floating island at this moment. Madame Huang, don't blame the others. There aren't any real friends in this world. Go, my brothers. Penglai Island had always been removed from the outside world and rarely interacted with other people. They had no friends to help them. Even if there were, who could guarantee they would not be stabbed in the back at the crucial moment? Ma Qing bowed at Lu Zhou. He knew Lu Zhou was the only one who could do something. Old Senior Ji. Please do something. Even if Huang Shiji was here, he could not have possibly turned the tides of the battle. The cacophonous sounds of battles rang from the 4 islands. The death toll was rising. Many low-rank cultivators fell into the sea, and their blood stained the sea red. The originally pristine waters were stained red. Lu Zhou stood next to little Yuan and Conk. Without the peak trial card, it was not practical to try to take down these many ravenous wolves with other item cards and the heavenly writings powers alone. Moreover, these people had gone wild from their greed. They were beyond reasoning. Unless he could somehow gather all the cultivators in one place, it was rather impossible to take all of them down at once with the heavenly writing power. Rumble. The floating island sank another 10 meters. Lu Zhou looked up. The huge island that spanned 1,000 square meters blotted out the sun. It was too close. The pressure made it difficult to breathe. The frenzied cultivators flew recklessly toward the floating island. Ma Qing. Bring your people to the west, Lu Zhou ordered. Ma Qing was delighted when he heard Lu Zhou's words. He led his disciples and shot toward the island in the west at once. Up to 1,000 sword formations flew toward the frenzied cultivators like schools of fish in the sea. An intense battle unfolded in the sky. Meanwhile, Madame Huang stood on the floating island. Her expression was slightly blank. At this moment, Lu Zhou pushed away from the ground and flew toward the floating island. Suddenly, a voice rang in the air. Madame Huang. You're as attractive as ever. Lu Zhou turned to look. It was a middle-aged cultivator who had spoken. He sent a palm strike toward the cultivator. Boom. A light blue palm seal shot out and struck the middle-aged cultivator. He dropped at once into the sea with a splash. As Lu Zhou flew, he saw the floating island was in chaos. It was nearly impossible to tell who was from which sect. Everyone was busy looting the island. Lu Zhou continued flying upward. If it was possible, he did not want to use the heavenly writings power. It was not an issue for a 2-leaf nascent divinity realm cultivator to kill cultivators below the nascent divinity realm. Madame Huang looked down. When she saw Lu Zhou flying toward her, an expression of surprise appeared on her face. She was uncertain about Lu Zhou's stance. Therefore, she quickly raised the hand that was holding onto the heavenly scroll and loudly said, I repeat, the moment the floating island sinks, the heavenly scroll will be destroyed as well. The Penglai heavenly scroll burst forth, with radiance as her sound wave rolled into the surroundings. Madame Huang. The heavenly scroll is mine. Mine. Dozens of divine court realm cultivators flew toward the floating island. If this was in the past, they would even have the chance to get so close. Alas, without the formation and barrier, the floating island was defenseless. At the same time, dozens of 10 Worlds avatars appeared as well. Lu Zhou frowned slightly. What a pain. He joined his palms together, and there was a flash of blue light. Scram. A sound wave rippled out from Lu Zhou into the surroundings and echoed in the air. This was the power of speech. The sound technique sent the dozens of cultivators reeling back like a flurry of hurricanes. They spat out mouthfuls of blood. Those who were watching from afar paled in fright. Forget about Penglai Island. Let him have the Penglai heavenly scroll. The cultivators were not fools. They would not face a powerful elite head-on or fight him for the heavenly scroll. At this moment, Lu Zhou landed next to Madame Huang. He extended his hand to her and coldly said, Give it. Madame Huang turned pale, and her body tensed. Lu Zhou saw her frightened expression and said, With me around, this won't be the end yet. His wizened palm was still extended before Madame Huang. It was normal for her to be skeptical and wary. After all, she could no longer tell who was a friend or a foe. Madame Huang glanced at the 4 islands that were all in chaos. She closed her eyes as a tear ran down her cheek. She placed the heavenly scroll in Lu Zhou's hand. Ding! Obtained the open earth scroll. Reward, 3,000 merit points. As Lu Zhou had expected, it was the open earth scroll. Lu Zhou's heart stirred as he struck with his palm. The earth scroll shattered. The outer cover was reduced to debris that scattered in the air. For a time, everyone was stunned. The heavenly scroll was destroyed? Madame Huang's eyes widened as she asked in a trembling voice, why? Lu Zhou had no wish to explain himself. The open earth scroll automatically appeared in the system dashboard. Keeping its physical form would only be troublesome. The debris fluttered away like shining butterflies. Rumble. The floating island touched the waters. A huge wave rippled outward. Little Yuan grabbed conch and flew into the air. The moment the floating island sunk into the water, Lu Zhou activated his protective energy and kept the seawater at bay. Alas, the sinking of the floating island was the final straw that broke the camel's back for Madame Huang. Penglai Island's hope was gone. Without hope, what was the point of her living? How would she face her husband? She sighed softly and no longer resisted. Just as well. Death ends all troubles and worries. When the seawater surged toward them, a palm seal sent her flying upward. Bastard! Madame Huang exclaimed in shock. She flew up above the sea's surface. When she looked down again, Lu Zhou, who was standing in his own energy shield, was swallowed by the sea. Old senior. Madame Huang was shaken. At this moment, her hope was rekindled. The old senior had saved her without any regard for his safety. She would be an ingrate to throw away her life. She circulated some of her primal chi as she looked at the floating island disappearing beneath the waves. She was slightly stunned. The floating island is gone. The 4 islands will soon sink as well. Quickly. When they saw the floating island sink, the Qingyun sword sect's Ma Qing led his disciples on their swords and looked down at the 4 islands. What a shame. I've done all I could. I'm sorry, Madame Huang. I'm sorry, Island Master Huang. Madame Huang no longer cared. Loot all you want. It's better for them to end up in your hands than at the bottom of the sea. In the skies, Conch looked at the floating island that was sinking into the sea and mumbled, Luo Yu. Little Yuan said, where's my master? She was in a dilemma. She wanted to dive into the sea to save her master, but she could not leave Conch alone. What should she do? Suddenly, a Taoist nearby launched himself from the ground, conjured up a group of energy swords, and charged at Little Yuan. Since you killed a member of our Taishu Academy and took the golden Taishu mirror away from us, I'll have your disciple's life as payment. Sneak attack. This elite could no longer refrain from attacking. The cultivators nearby turned to look despite themselves. They were hit with a sudden realization. How could Jiang Lizzie, a mere elder, bring the golden Taishu mirror with him and speak so arrogantly to the old senior?